Hey guys, you're welcome back to today's tutorial video. My name is Alexandra Valentine, and in this channel we post all things sewing tutorials, sewing hacks and whatnot. So in today's video we are going to be sewing a straight dart with yoke straight gown. Okay, so it's going to be like a 3-in-1 video, but this video is a video, so I will not want this video to be too long, so that's the reason why I divided into two. So this part is going to be a cutting part. So I've gone ahead to draft out my basic bodies, and what I'm doing now is I'm trying to draw out the neck. So I'm coming down by 3 inches because I want this neckline to be round neckline. Okay, so I'm coming down by 3 inches by 3 inches. So I'm going to square that up and then draw out my curve. Now that is done, I am going to be dividing what I have left of my shoulder, just like we did in our basic bodies. Okay, so my that was extended to my chest line, which was not supposed to be. So my that's supposed to just start from my bust point line to my waistline. So I'm dividing my chest, what I have left of my shoulder, into two. Then I'm going to connect it to meet my bust point. That's the reason why I cancelled the line, that line that I extended towards my chest line. Okay, so that will not be confused. So let's just connect from that point, that shoulder point, now to meet the bust point. Now I'll come at the under bust, which is at this point, the under bust that line, okay, which is at this point. Then I'll mark 1 inch and 1 inch on the other side of the dart leg. On the 1 inch now, I am going to be using my curve ruler to make a curve to meet the bust point. Okay, so the curve is going to be inwards, like towards the dart leg. That for the both points that we mark is going to be towards the dart leg, and not outwards. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Just see the position of my curve ruler. You need to be taking note of these things. So I'm going to draw the curve now inwards towards the dart leg to meet my bust point. That's from that one inch that I marked on both sides of the dart leg. I'm going to connect it in a curve to meet my bust point. Okay, now on the chest line too, that's the line coming from the shoulder, the dart line coming from the shoulder, I'm going to be marking 0.75 or half of an inch, because this is going to have a side dart. So for someone who is not busting, now you do not necessarily need a side dart. Hence, the measurements you're going to be doing here is going to be 1 inch on both sides. So for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to be making use of a side dart, and since I'm a small busted person, well, the measurement I have there will be 0.5, that's half of an inch. So now from that point, now I'm going to be connecting it to meet the dart point, that's that divided point on the shoulder. I'm going to be connecting it like this. Okay, so the next thing we want to do now is to make our sweetheart curve. So from the chest line, I'm just going to use my curve ruler to curve out how deep I want my sweetheart to be. Your sweetheart curve could be reaching your waistline, your under bust. It just depends on how deep you want it to be. But me, I want it to be at my bust point. Okay, so now that is done, we will go ahead now to extend this our dart to touch the waistline. Okay, by doing so, we just mark 1 inch, 1 inch on both sides of the dart leg. Okay, then we'll just connect it to meet the under bust. So now that is done, I'm going to be marking my body measurement, and on this waistline now, I'm marking my round waist measurement divided by 4 plus these 2 inches of that intake that we took out, then plus 2 inches again for the stitching allowance. Then I'm also going to be adding 2 inches on the bust line for our stitching allowance. because I've already imputed our bust measurement, which is our round bust divided by 4. That is what we will use to determine our armhole measurement, or our armhole curve. So I'm connecting it in a straight line from the bust point line to meet the waist point line. So now I'm also going to be marking my original measurement, like I'm taking away the 2 inches for stitching allowance, and you see why. So on that original measurement line now, I'm going to be marking my side that. So I'm coming down by from the bust point I'm coming down by 1.5 inches, and I'll be connecting it to meet my bust point. And the reason why I came down from my bust point by 1.5 inches, it is the difference between, or how I got 1.5 inches is the difference between my front waistline minus my back waistline. That's from my shoulder to my front waistline minus my shoulder to my back waistline. Okay, I don't know if you understand. So now I'm going to be shading out the areas that will be taken out, and I'll go ahead and cut. So watch the way I'm cutting. I'm cutting through the waistline, and when I get to the end, I will just stop. Okay, so now I'm going to cut through I'm going to be cutting through it like the center that. Now I'm going to be cutting through it like this. Then I'm going to move over to just cut it and stop at the bust point. So I'm going to cut through the armhole. Then I'm going to cut through the original body measurement, and when I get to that 2 inches for that, 1.5 inches for that in side that, I'm going to be cutting through the side that. Okay, so as usual, we are going to be closing up the side that with the mobility from the waist that. Okay, just like we did when we were doing our dart manipulation. So I'll just go ahead now to use my gum to just place on it, so by the time we close it up, it's not going to be moving anyhow. So now the next thing to do is to use my scissors to just cut through the pattern paper like this in a straight line. Okay, from that point where we what's it called, we covered up the side that. So I'm going to cut out the 2 inches stitching allowance, and this is what we have. Now we are going to be cutting the sweetheart area. This is called the yoke. So we are going to be cutting it through the chest line. Okay, you see the way I'm going about it. Then I'll keep this aside, and then we'll go ahead now to cut out the parts that I shaded. So I'm cutting out that 0.75 that I went in on the shoulder dart. Then I'm also going to cut out the other side as well. Just look at what I'm doing. So I'm cutting this part out because it's going to go out. Okay, then I'm also going to cut out the shaded part I did on the waist area. So just follow the line, that's that line, that 1 inch that you went in by. So cut it out and just trace it out to meet the bust point, and do the same thing on this other side as well. You can also always watch back if you're confused. Take it back, watch it, drop your question if necessary, and I'll answer you. And that's just it. So I'll go ahead now to label it. So this is going to be our center front, okay, and this is going to be our side front, so not to be confused on to understand the terms. So this is our yoke, but let's go ahead now and cut out the shoulder slant and then the neck. Okay, before we'll now be able to do our yoke tightening, because it is important that you do your yoke tightening so that it will not be too free on the yoke area. So to do our yoke tightening, now you see that went into the shoulder, we are going to be folding it on that then we'll be closing it up. If you follow up to this stage, you understand what I'm saying, if you have done your own correctly. So we are going to be closing up that we did here. See the way I'm going about it, making sure that it's just closed up at the chest area, and it will just like finish up into the shoulder. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I'm going to use my gum now to hold it down in place so that it will not be moving. So this is what we'll have it looking like at the end of the day. So let's just move straight to the back part. I've gone ahead to draft out the back part off camera. I did not realize my camera was not recording, but let me just go ahead and illustrate it. So I added 2 inches for the zipper allowance as usual. Then from that zipper line, I marked my shoulder measurement, and I came down by my armhole opening, marked my shoulder measurement on it again just to make it straight. Make sure that it's starting from that 2 inches line. Then I connected it in a straight line just to get our armhole measurement. Okay, so I marked my round bust measurement, so then I curved it into the armhole. Okay, then I added 2 inches for stitching allowance. Now from the shoulder to the top, I marked my back waist measurement, which is 14.5. Remember, our back waist measurement and our front waist measurement is not the same thing, so put your back waist measurement so that it will align with the front part of your dress, since we took out the 1.5 inches for the side that. Okay, so I'm going to be marking my waist measurements now, divide by 4 plus 2 inches for stitching allowance. Then I will connect it in a straight line to meet the bust point, or the bust point. So I just connected it. Now I'm going to go ahead now to cut out what I've drafted. So now just watch me as I cut through the armhole, the side measurement, and the waistline. You get, then we'll cut the shoulder slant and the neck area. So just repeat the same process on yours. So now, because I want my yoke, I want to have a yoke at the back as well, because I want it to be a different material. I'm going to draw out what I want. Okay, so I'm just trying to slant it a little bit, and then I'll cut through this line. But before I cut through this line, I'll be adding half of an inch towards the upper part. Do you get, like this? Instead of cutting on the line, I just added half of an inch at the top of the line. See what I'm doing there? Then I'm going to use this upper part, which is called the yoke for the back, or the back yoke rather. I'm going to use it to cut on another fabric. So you can see what we have. I've gone ahead to cut it on another fabric, and when I cut it out, I just added half of an inch at that edge as well, so that by the time I join the two fabrics together, it will be the original size. So I've used my front pattern paper now to cut on my main fabric. Okay, and mind you, this is on fold, so just watch how I'm going to illustrate how I cut it out. Okay, so this is the center front. Remember, we labeled it, and this one I'm holding now is the center front. So I'm just trying to make sure that it is well placed, like it's aligning, because it's on fold, remember. So I'm going to place the pattern paper on it and show you how I cut it out. So I added half of an inch round it aside the folded edge, the part where the closed edge. Okay, that's the center front, the center for the center front pattern. While the other one, I added for the side front, I added half of an inch round it aside the 2 inches side and the armhole. So this is the yoke. I've gone ahead to cut out the yoke, and also notice how I added half of an inch on the neckline, the shoulder slant, and the sweetheart area without adding at the armhole. I did not add at the armhole, and I also did not add at the folded or the closed edge. Okay, so just take this, just note this down so that when you're doing yours, you don't make a mistake. So keeping that aside now, I've gone ahead to cut out a basic skirt. So in our next video, I will be showing you guys how I went about cutting it out. So this is the front part and the back part, and they are both on folds, like they are both on folds. So In our next video, I'm going to be showing you how I was able to cut it out, because there's a difference between a gown skirt and a normal skirt, like a separate skirt. So now let's just go into the drafting of a sleeve. I just took some of the pattern paper that was left, so I'll be able to draft out the hand. So this sleeve can be also applicable. It's just a straight sleeve. You can use this method to draft out a very long sleeve or a short sleeve, but what I'm drafting out now is a short sleeve. Okay, so I'm marking 4 inches across the edge of the paper, then I'll come down by 5 inches. Now that 5 inches, I am going to connect it to meet the 4 inches like this. You see the way I'm doing it back? Just draw like a 2 to meet that 4 inches and let it just go in smoothly, more like you are drawing a stretch number 2. I don't know how else to explain it. So now what you are going to do is to measure your round armhole, like what you have on your round armhole. Measure it and then you cross check to see if that's the same figure you have on the stretch to you've drawn on your pattern paper. So let's just cross check. Now to cross check, you take your tape and then you are going to start measuring around the line. It's what I'm doing. Just start measuring, because your tape is very flexible. It is possible for you to take this measurement. So you see the way I'm going about it, and when I get to the end, I'm going to observe how many it is that is here, and I'll mark it. So that point now that I marked is the measurement I made on the round arm of the dress. Okay, so I'm coming down by the edge of the paper to my arm, my upper arm. So if you've watched the basic bodies, you understand what I'm talking about at this point. So I've marked it there, and then across now is going to be our round arm measurement, which is going to be divided by 2. So that point now I'm going to extend it in a straight line, and it is on this line now that I will mark our round arm divided by 2 plus 2 inches for stitching allowance. Okay, so now I'm going to connect these 2 points into a straight line, and that's just basically it for drafting of a sleeve. So if you want a longer sleeve, just keep imputing the vertical measurement, and then on those vertical measurements you go ahead and impute your horizontal measurements, which is your round arm, upper arm, your round elbow, your round wrist, all divided by 2. You just be putting it on the vertical points. Okay, so it's not supposed to be hard. If you have any question, as usual, drop it in the group or you leave it in the comment section, then I'll answer your questions. So this is what I have at the end of the day. I've cut it out. I'm going to be transferring this on a fabric. So this is the fabric I'll be working with. You can see I'm just adjusting. So I've made a fold of 1. So this is 1 fold. That means I have 2 pieces, right, for the 2 sleeve. Then I'm going to fold it again. This is the reason why we divide into 2, right? Because it's folded into 2. But since it's 2 sleeve, I'm trying to cut it at the same time. So now I'm going to put the straight edge of the paper at the folded edge of the fabric. Okay, so I'm just trying to adjust it to make sure that everything is okay, because I'm cutting 2 fabrics, 2 sleeve. I don't want one looking different from the other or one bigger than the other. So that straight edge of the paper, I'll place it on the folded edge of the fabric. Then I'm going to trace out the arm or the pattern paper like this. So I'm going to be cutting out this edge too. You see the way I'm not adding anything, right? I'm only going to be adding half of an inch at the okay, I've added it when I was drafting, so I don't need to add it anymore. So you see the way I did not add anything, right? That's just the same way you're going to do yours, except if when you're drafting the paper you did not add that half of an inch for folding or hemming of the sleeve, then you go ahead and add it. So this is what the sleeve is looking like. So in our next video, we are going to be coupling the dress together. So please do not forget to give this video a thumbs up and also leave your comments in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to join the family too.